Gentlemen, this is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz, and today we're going over the Steelers-Raiders Sunday game. Awesome game from start to finish, guys. I'm really excited to bring you this content. We're going to go over possession by possession, kind of what happened, what that might mean, and then at the end of this video, we're going to break down individual players. We're going to look at team statistics and see what do that stats mean for each of these players, what we can project for them in their matchups next week, and we're going to help you make those hard start, sit decisions for your lineups. But without further ado, let's get into this Relentless Rundown. To start this game, guys, Pittsburgh gets the ball. They don't do a whole lot with it. They get a first down to Juju, but then on 3rd and 9, an incomplete pass, and they are forced to punt. Back to the Vegas side of things, they get a couple first downs, but then on 3rd down and 2, Kenyon Drake, starting for the injured Josh Jacobs, is stuffed short, and they have to punt it back to the Steelers. On that possession, the Steelers have a bonehead, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That brings them all the way back to their own 7-yard line, and they have a really long field to start this drive. Najee Harris has an awesome 15-yard run. You love to see that, especially because he was bottled up last week, so he busts out. But then on 3rd down and 10, Big Ben drops back, doesn't see the safety over the top, tries to force it into a window and throws an interception. So the Raiders get the ball in great field position, and right away it's Kenyon Drake again with an 11-yard run. But then TJ Watt, the stud defensive end, sack, fumble, back-to-back. Carr fumbles again, so 2 straight fumbles for Derek Carr puts him in a 3rd and 19, no-win situation. They dump it underneath to Drake again for 10 yards, but because of that field position, they're able to get a 46-yard field goal by Daniel Carlson, making this one 3-0 Las Vegas, just 3 minutes into the first quarter. On Pittsburgh's next possession, Najee Harris looks good again. He throws a nasty stiff arm to the defender and is able to break free for 8 yards. After a couple more first downs, it's 3rd down and 8. And Juju becomes known in this game. He breaks 2 tackles, gets down the field for a 20-yard catch and run to put them into good field position. Now 4th down and 4. As this drive continues, they're at the Las Vegas 38. They decide to go for it, and it's an incomplete pass. Pittsburgh turns it over on down. So once again, we're seeing early in games with positive field position, coaches making decisions, this time Mike Tomlin wanting to try to push for those touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. It doesn't work for Pittsburgh on this particular possession. Las Vegas then gets helped a little bit by Pittsburgh with a personal foul as Derek Carr runs for a first down, so they tack that on, and he hits one of his main men, Hunter Renfrow. He has an electric 16-yard catch and run for the first down, and the Raiders are in business and moving. On 3rd down and 2, Carr misses his target, and the Raiders have to settle for a 33-yard field goal, making this one 6-0 Raiders with still 9 minutes, 34 seconds to go in the half. Pittsburgh gets the ball back now, and they start it with Diontae Johnson for 11 yards, and then Najee immediately comes in and has his own 12-yard run, and Pittsburgh looks to be in business. Once again, Diontae Johnson for 35 yards. Big splash plays starting to happen for this Pittsburgh offense. And on 2nd down and goal, they do a little bit of an okey-doke route to Juju, the dump underneath. He is a 3-yard touchdown run, and the Steelers take the lead 7-6. Now Vegas, looking to answer, starts this drive off fast. They had 3 receptions of over 10 yards in the next drive. A little concerning, however, for Darren Waller owners. We know he had that epic 19 target, 10 reception, 100+ yard performance last week. At this point, with only 2 minutes to go in the half, a single target for Darren Waller, so we hope that they get him involved later on in this game. As the drive continues, it's 3rd and Renfro, and Hunter delivers with a big first down, and then 4th and 1, Derek Carr gets into the action with a QB sneak for a first. Now, Vegas pulls himself back, and this is where the problems start on this drive. There's a false start by Las Vegas, which isn't huge, but then they hit Bryan Edwards for a big touchdown to potentially put them up, but holding on the Raiders pulls them back. They then have an ineligible player downfield later on in the drive, and instead of getting that touchdown from Edwards, who had a big late game performance in week 1, they have to settle for a 41-yard field goal. That kick is good, and at halftime, it is 9-7 Vegas. If you guys are new to the channel, if this is your first time here, maybe you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. It helps me grow and give you guys the content that you want. We're going to move to the second half now, and it starts with a Las Vegas 3rd down and 4. Willie Snead enters the picture. He has a 15-yard catch, but nothing else happens on this drive. Incomplete on 3rd and 9, and they punt the ball back to Pittsburgh. On the Steelers' possession, a no-name Freiermuth, the tight end, with a 15-yard catch on 3rd down and 5. Ben then takes a sack. They go short on 3rd down and long and have to punt it back to the Raiders, just exchanging nothing drives to start the second half. Back comes Bryan Edwards with a 17-yard catch. Love to see it, but then Carr takes a sack. And on 3rd down and 9, I should say 3rd down and Hunter Renfro, because once again an acrobatic 23-yard catch, and then immediately to Henry Ruggs for a 35-yard catch, 58 yards in those 2 plays. Ruggs looked awesome when he got into open space on that play, and Carr throws the 10-yard touchdown pass that makes it 16-7. Raiders have a little bit of breathing room with 5:02 to go in the 3rd quarter. Pittsburgh has a roughing the passer called, and then Chase Claypool gets a 15-yard gain, so they get to move the ball a little bit and change field position. They end up punting, however, after an incomplete pass on 3rd and 10. Now, because of that field position change, the Raiders start at their own 3-yard line, really backed up and in a dangerous position. They still have that 9-point lead, but you can feel a little bit of pressure there. They go back to back. Drake, Waller, and Edwards, they each have catches totaling 40 yards, but they end up having to punt on another 3rd down and Renfro, and Pittsburgh gets the ball back. So down 16-7 still, and finally, Chase Claypool comes into the picture. He has a 42-yard catch, looked awesome on the route, and that brings the Pittsburgh Steelers into striking position. On 3rd down and 10, they go to the guy they've been hoping to produce that was drafted in the 1st round, and that is, of course, Najee Harris. He breaks off a 25-yard screen, breaks a tackle, extends and dives for the pylon, touchdown, Pittsburgh, and we got ourselves a slugfest. It's 16-14. Las Vegas still holding on to that 2-point lead all the way down to 11:15 to go in this game. Now the Raiders finally getting Waller a little bit more involved. They hit him for 10 yards, and then on a critical 3rd down and 10, game starting to look like it's on the line here. Henry Ruggs the 3rd, he goes 61 yards over the top for the score, and Vegas once again extends that lead to 23-14. The Steelers, trying to hang around on the next possession, actually decide to punt the ball on 4th down and 1. Now there's 8:35 to go, and they're at their own 35. So still a little bit of time left. You gotta love that Pittsburgh defense, but being down 2 scores in this game with just 8.5 to play, maybe Mike Tomlin goes a little bit more aggressive next time. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, but you would have liked to maybe see them go for it. But the running game wasn't spectacular in this game, and we'll get into Harris's stats later, but I can understand the hesitation. Vegas trying to salt this one away, hands it off to Peyton Barber, who makes one of his 2 good runs. He did not look great overall in this game, but he busts an 11-yard run, and then on 3rd down and 3, trying to pick up that first, they are stuffed short and end up having to punt it back to Pittsburgh. So now just 5:51 to go. Pittsburgh still down 2 possessions. They get a couple first downs. Deontay Johnson, once again, who was targeted early and often in this game, makes a catch. But then on 3rd down and 10, they incomplete as a wide open receiver is missed by Big Ben. They end up settling to make it a 1-possession game, and Chris Boswell hits an awesome 56-yard kick to make it 23-17 Raiders. Just 3:37 left. And for the Raiders, trying to put it away, they go to their number 1 target in this passing offense. That, of course, is Darren Waller. 25 yards. They salt it away with Peyton Barber on his 2nd big run of the 4th quarter, a 12-yard run, and that gets us to the 2-minute warning. Now, Daniel Carlson is in field goal range at this point. He's able to extend the lead to 26-17 as the game wraps up. And that's it, guys. Pittsburgh moves to 1-1 in this game, while the Las Vegas Raiders remain undefeated and move to 2-0. Overall, the Raiders looked solid on both sides of the ball. I was actually really surprised at the way that they were able to shut down that Steelers offense. I thought Pittsburgh would do a little bit more offensively in this game, but it's clear that that is still a work in progress, and I think a lot of that falls on the offensive line. Pittsburgh did not look great. The Raiders' defensive line was able to create pressure in this game. And then Derek Carr, guys, he wasn't flashy, but he was effective. And especially when you think about the lack of running game that we saw from the Raiders in this game, you have to love what he produced. Now, as always, guys, I highly encourage any comments. If you have any questions for me, please drop them down below and I will get to those as soon as I can. And if you have any suggestions or just think about any content that might be important to you guys, please let me know and I will do my best to get those things added to the list. We're going to start now by going over the team and then individual player breakdowns, how they did statistically this week, what we might be able to project going into next week, and we'll start with Pittsburgh because they have a home game against the Cincinnati Bengals in week 3. So you love to see that, and it's definitely a plus matchup. Now in this game against the Raiders, Big Ben Roethlisberger was 27 of 40. He did have 295 yards and a touchdown, but he threw a pick, fumbled, but didn't lose it. And when you look at the production, it looks solid. But honestly, guys, he didn't look great in this game. Now, I think we wanted to probably project a little bit more for him because the Raiders haven't looked spectacular on defense, but that defensive line clearly caused him fits in this game. I still like Big Ben to rebound next week in that plus matchup, and I would still have him as a mid to lower end QB2 when we're talking about 2 QB or super flex leagues. Otherwise, he's probably best left on your bench. Gonna get into the running game now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that of course is one man, Najee Harris, the rookie in his 2nd game out of Alabama. And guys, he's still not flashing a whole lot on the ground. We talked about that epic 25-yard touchdown in the 4th quarter. Now, he did have 5 receptions on 5 targets for 43 yards, so you love to see that work in the passing game, and that should continue, but on the ground, just 10 carries. He did it for 38 yards, so nearly averaged 4 yards a clip, and you like to see that improvement after his struggles last week. But overall, guys, just 15 touches, and we expected him to be closer to that 20-touch range. Now, I expect that to happen next week, and I like him as an RB1 with game-winning upside against that Bengals defense, but a little bit quieter for Najee in this game, and that touchdown definitely saved him. We move to the wide receiver core, and there's a couple of them that we want to touch base on. And it starts with both Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster. They started out with a combined 16 targets in this game. Now, Chase was just 3 out of 9, so you don't like that catch percentage, but you do love the targets, and he had that big play for 40-plus yards, and Chase finished with 70 yards total through the air. Now, Juju had 7 targets of his own, caught 6 of them, but for only 41 yards. He was clearly being used underneath a whole lot more, and they weren't really looking for him deep and over the top. Against Cincy next week, I like them both as wide receiver 3s with some upside. Chase is definitely the riskier of the two, but he did have greater average depth of target and so potential for those bigger plays. And Juju is that safer Hunter Renfrow type of player, at least this week. Finally, we're going to talk about Deontay Johnson a little bit. He was the clear alpha in this game. He had 12 targets, catching 9 of them for over 100 yards, and he is no worse than a wide receiver 2 moving forward for me. However, he was banged up on the game's final and worthless play, and so we have to watch his availability for this coming week, because if he does not play in this game, guys, that is a huge boost in value to both Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster. I would move them up probably to that low-end wide receiver 2 position if Johnson misses time. Finally, we're going to go and just touch base real quickly on Pat Freiermuth. He becomes onto that tight end Raider, if only because of his targets in this game. He did have 4 of them, and he caught all of them. Now, only 36 yards, but last week he was invisible with just 1 target and catch. So you love to see that. I would still probably leave him on waivers for now unless you're absolutely desperate. Like we said, we like the matchup with Cincy, and there's some upside there, but I would definitely not be starting him just yet. We're going to now move to the Raiders side of things, and they have another great matchup next week in a Miami Dolphins team that just gave up 30-plus points to the Buffalo Bills. And we'll start with the guy slinging it around the field all day, and that is Derek Carr. Now, he finished 28 out of 37, 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, he did fumble the ball twice, but didn't end up losing either, so you could have a sigh of relief there. And this makes now over 800 yards passing for Derek Carr in the first 2 weeks of this season. He looked calm and collected, especially against a very tough Pittsburgh defense. He spread the ball around well, and I would have him as a high-end QB2, maybe the low-end QB1 conversation with his production earlier on in this season. And especially if Josh Jacobs continues to miss time, I like Carr even more. Go to the running game just a little bit, not a whole lot of note. Now, we did talk about in my active-inactive rundown early on Sunday morning, I was not a believer in Peyton Barber, and this shows you why. He had 23 yards on 2 of his carries, but outside of that, on his other 11 carries, he had just 9 yards. I think he's a potential drop candidate. Maybe keep an eye on Jacobs and see if he's not coming back. You might want to stash, but just not a lot of production from him. Didn't look great at all, and most of the work that you're going to want went to Kenyon Drake anyway. Kenyon Drake had 7 carries for only 9 yards, so once again, that ground game for the Raiders was almost worthless, but he had 6 targets, catching 5 of them. He had 46 yards receiving, and he looked really good in space. Not so much between the tackles. I like him as a flex play next week. If Josh Jacobs misses time, we might move that up just a little bit because those touches are going to continue to increase. Over to the wide receiver core now for Las Vegas. And it starts with Henry Ruggs, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. Each of these guys had 7 targets. They all had 5 receptions, including Ruggs' huge 61-yard touchdown in the 4th quarter that helped the Vegas Raiders pull away. Ruggs finished with 113 yards. Waller had 65 of his own, and third and Renfrow, with a couple huge conversions again, had 57 yards and showed some playmaking ability this week. We know that Waller is a locked and loaded tight end 1. He's, I believe, the current tight end 3 on the season, and he is looking fantastic. Obviously, his targets tapered off a bit, which was expected. Now, on the other end, for Ruggs and Renfrow, I like them as wide receiver 3s, specifically in this matchup with Miami. Someone is going to be covered by Xavier Howard. We don't know exactly who that might be, and so I think Ruggs is a little riskier, but he's got a bigger upside. We talked about the dependability of Hunter Renfrow, and I like him as a lower end on that wide receiver range if you're just looking for someone to give you those 8 to 12 points. Finally, we'll touch base on Bryan Edwards, who had those huge catches late in that game last week. He had 3 targets, he had 3 catches, 40 yards, and that touchdown was called back. So could have been a much bigger day for Bryan Edwards. I wouldn't give up hope on him just yet. He is a hold, but a risky wide receiver for next week with some upside. And then finally, the random kicker call out, ladies and gentlemen, and that is for Daniel Carlson, who's going to be a good play next week against Miami. He looked great today. He looked awesome last week as well. I like him if you're looking for a kicker. If yours isn't producing, he might be the guy as the Las Vegas Raiders continue to score points. And that wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't done it yet, or if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz. We'll see you next time.